I think it's cool that we're having this in Detroit,
Yeah,
and it's Democrats who should have a lot to say to Detroiters. Will they?
Well, it'll be their opportunity to talk about an urban agenda. They didn't get to that in the first round of debates, and you assume, because it's Detroit, they'll use this opportunity to talk more about race. A debate stage in Detroit is a very dangerous place for Joe Biden, given his performance in the first debate, when he was asked about the only race question that came up was his history with busing, which seemed a irrelevant issue, but they whacked him pretty hard on it. Kamala Harris did. He had no effective answer, and his poll numbers went down. So,
although he still is in the lead going into the debates,
he rebounded,
and he's keeping black voters. They're not peeling off to go to Kamala Harris, who would be kind of a logical place for them to go after last debate, and they're not going to Cory Booker. Who's the other
Booker seems like
prominent African-American candidate. I think black voters identify Joe Biden with Barack Obama, and that's the most powerful motivator in history for black voters to show up.
So if he stumbles on race issues the way he did last time around, it didn't hurt him with black voters then. Is there a risk that it'll hurt him this time if the question goes
it depends on what they talk about. I think I think Kamala Harris also has a real Achilles heel in this question of how she handled her duties as a prosecutor, and whether that had negative consequences for African Americans. I don't know that Joe Biden can raise that because he supported
the crime bills
and
look what that's done
did
to
the same
Detroit,
thing.
so.
I don't know that anybody has clean hands on that, but you could see another candidate, I suppose, lob that into the middle of the discussion and get after both of them.
And why wouldn't they? And will they be asked about reparations, which is an issue that they're sort of dancing around?
I think they got to be careful about general election consequences if you're too viewed as too in favor of reparations. But I think it's really interesting that it seems that in the Democratic primaries and in that field, you're going to have to have an answer about what you think about reparations. This is the first time
for the primary.
But this is the first time I can remember this.
It's a word that won't be spoken in the general election.
It probably shouldn't come up in the general election. And white voters, the president's voters in particular, don't really even understand that word.
You want to get Donald Trump reelected. Make that a key issue in the general campaign.
It's not just the urban agenda, it's immigration. I mean, you go to Southwest Detroit right now and talk to people about what's going on, and even more importantly, what they fear is about to happen. I mean, there is this constant signaling that things are going to get worse, that there are raids or crackdowns coming. I mean, it's really tense down there, and I think Democratic candidates probably ought to have an answer to how to relieve that, or how they would do that if they were elected.
And you also have concern about immigration among black voters and lower income white voters who see this as a competition for jobs, this unchecked.
I'm not sure they do.
Well, I mean, those are the comments I'm getting on my radio show. And you hear people worry about this sort of, new cheap workforce coming in that can be exploited at our expense one more time. And the other issue I think that Democrats are going to have to work around is the better employment numbers in places like Detroit. I mean, they're bringing here
better employment numbers, but they aren't better income. So people are working 2 and 3 jobs when they used to be able to work one job for the same kind of wage.
That's the case they
people
make.
Are
but no more
that.
people are working 2 jobs today than they were a decade ago.
That's not true.
It is. It's 5% of the workforce.
It's untrue that people.
That number hasn't
increased. These numbers that report those things, of course, have never accounted for the kind of work that lots of Detroiters have.
The same people counted them that were a decade ago. It's 5% today, 5% then. It's just not true. And household incomes are rising. Slowly, but they're rising for the first time. And when you have more people working, it's always hard to make an election about the economy.
About the economy, I don't think that will be the issue.
This is a leadership election, and that's what they should be focused on, rather than these specific issues. I mean, there's nothing rising that's really troubling Americans. You look at the Gallup poll; it's leadership and then immigration. Somebody who can come into Detroit and show themselves as presidential material in contrast to Donald Trump,
Could win.
could win.
Yeah.